when we talk about India's potentials, we should also remember what are Bharat's problems. You cannot only think of the potentials, because the potentials always existed. Resources existed, human beings existed, their talents existed. But why these potentials did not get translated to solutions, achievements, progress, development? So there have been problems. Let us first deal with the problems. What are our problems? In the year 1964, the President of India, Dr. Radhakrishnan, he addressed the Parliament. The President always has the speech approved by the Cabinet, but he insisted on his own ideas being approved by the Cabinet. And in that speech he said, we have maladministered the vast resources of India. That is from 1950 to 1964. That there has been a gross maladministration of vast national resources. And it became a big issue, a public debate. The President of India reprimanding the then government. And it is true that the resources of India, about which I will explain to you, human as well as material, are so vast. How we have cooked up our own society, our economy, our polity. With the result, we are not able to put together a winning combination. And what led to all this? We just did not mismanage the resources of India. We mismanaged the mind of India. I told you yesterday about how the colonial continuation, even the language in which I am talking today is a colonial continuation. This colonial continuation created a divide between the society and the state. The government continued to be the British dispensation. There was no difference. In fact, we changed the title of Viceroy into Rashtrapati, and we renamed the Viceregal Bhavan into Rashtrapati Bhavan. In fact, there is a story which goes, actually it's not a story, it's an incident, it's a recorded incident. Pandit Nehru met Lord Mountbatten. Mountbatten said, till yesterday I was representing the prosperous and powerful British Empire. Today I am representing the ordinary Indian, whose representative is the Congress party. I am representing Mahatma Gandhi's India. So this vast Viceregal Bhavan, which is now the Rashtrapati Bhavan, it has a lot of pomp and show. So if you want, I will move to a smaller, simple bungalow. And there was a proposal at that time to convert the present Rashtrapati Bhavan into a huge hospital, so that it will be available to the vast masses of India. But Pandit Nehru told him, no, you don't shift to a smaller place, because we are ourselves thinking of shifting to bigger bungalows ourselves. So the mindset was very clear, that we are the continuation of that power. We are the rulers, we are the masters. And this thought came to the Indian establishment mainly through the English educated Indians. The ordinary leaders of India who were thrown up by the mass movement, they never had this idea. They always felt they were the servants of the ordinary Indians. They were the servants of the poor Indians. But the English establishment renamed itself as Indian establishment, and so this tradition continued. And this national mind also built up a utopia, that there will be peace everywhere, that the whole world is a good place to live. We should be representatives of Buddha. We should proclaim peace. So we were living in a utopia, not knowing the world is full of conflicts, full of tussles, full of problems. And so we imagined a world of our own and then began formulating our policies. Pandit Nehru, who was a great man, a competent man, an intelligent man, who was a respected man, but he was an idealist. He was not rooted in the ground. He was not in tune with the problems of this country. And so, he conceived an India which will have no enemy. It was also related yesterday by Sudarshanji in the morning program here, how he even visualized the Kashmir problem as not a problem at all. He did not visualize even Pakistan as a problem. Good people always view even wrong things as only good things with the result. We thought of an utopia. But unfortunately, philosophers, great people, have always thought that the world is full of problems. In fact, a Chinese philosopher by name Sun Tzu, he said, war and peace are interchangeable. War is for restoring peace, and peace is for preparing for war. And so there is nothing like war or peace as a permanent situation. So, but India always imagined that the world will be full of peace. We were defeated in the 1962 war. The independent India was defeated in the 1962 war because of this mind, because we were not practical. We were not realistic. We were living in a world of our own. With the result, in the first 12 to 15 years of independent India, which was led by an idealist, an utopian prime minister, India had a host of missed opportunities. All these things have been dealt very well in a book by Dr. Abdul Kalam. Abdul Kalam's book Vision 2020, in which he lists several historical civilizational problems of India, and 3 are very important. He says, India has greater tolerance and less discipline. We are a very tolerant people, and we are happy we are tolerant people. And a Hindu can tolerate any charge against him, but he should not be called narrow-minded. We want to be a very broad-minded society, and we want to be called a broad-minded society. But we don't have the discipline that is needed for a broad-minded society. With the result, lack of discipline and the perceived or the brand name broad-mindedness also had a great impact on the society. Second is a sense of retaliation. We cannot retaliate. If somebody slaps us, we cannot think of slapping. You know, in the Bible it is said, Christ told his followers, if somebody slaps on one cheek, you must show the other cheek. But the Christians never did it. Even though the Christ told them you should do it, they never did it. But none of our scriptures tell this. Nowhere in Indian scriptures, no Indian God has ever told the Indian, if somebody slaps you on one cheek, you must show the other cheek. But the Indian does it. It is because we lack a sense of retaliation. Third thing he mentions, we have a flexibility in accepting outsiders. Atiti Devo Bhava. Anyone who comes from outside, we accept easily. That is why we accepted foreigners easily, foreign ideas easily, foreign language easily, foreign institutions easily, even though none of them was suitable to India. These are the problems which we inherited. I related to you yesterday about the English-speaking establishment, how it is dominating India even today. And with the result, we lack confidence in India. Abdul Kalam relates this brilliantly. He says, there was an atlas in a German calendar. And an Indian said, how beautifully the Germans print it, you see. It was hanging on the wall. So when Abdul Kalam said, this is a German calendar, but the atlas which is printed there, the photograph, was taken from the Indian remote sensing satellite, which sends some of the best pictures in the world. So the Indian said, oh, we are also producing such images. The Indian cannot believe. The Germans only printed it. The pictures came from the Indian remote sensing satellite. Second thing, even in the past, India was defeated because it did not have modern weaponry. This is what our historians say. Abdul Kalam related in a dinner meeting that the rocket which was produced by Tipu Sultan was modified by the British in the year 1805, and the Prime Minister Pitt and the Defence Secretary approved this model, and it was used to defeat Napoleon in 1806. When he mentioned it, the group of Indians did not believe it. So Abdul Kalam had to go inside, search for the book in which this information is available, written by a British defence analyst, and he showed that book to the Indians present there. Then one of the Indians said, "Oh, very interesting." Even then we wouldn't believe that even in the 19th century, beginning of the 19th century, when rocket was unknown, Indians had invented the rocket and used it. And the third thing he says, 3 instances he quotes. When India launched this satellite, India was the first country to launch the satellite in the second attempt. America made 5 attempts. Russians made 6 attempts. In the second attempt, India succeeded. When India succeeded, all countries were put to shame. And Indian satellite budget was 1/30th of the budget of America. If it takes $300 million in America to launch the satellite, it took only $10 million in India. The entire establishment, there are nearly 14,000 engineers working on satellites, and it cost so little, 1/30th of the American budget. When we launched this satellite, the whole world was surprised. India has become a member of the satellite club. So the Americans began planting a news item that India could not have done it. When Abdul Kalam came to NASA, and he was with us for 2 weeks, we had a talk with him, and during the talk, he must have stolen the satellite secret from us. This is what the Americans began saying. 14,000 engineers have been working for nearly 12 years to do this project. But the Americans began telling a lie that Abdul Kalam came there for 2 weeks, and during the discussions he got hold of the secret. Okay, the Americans can say it. The Indian newspapers printed it day after day, saying that Indians could not have done it. Indians cannot do it. We cannot do it. Bharatiyas are incapable of accomplishment. This was the news item repeatedly published by the English newspapers and magazines day after day. The second thing he relates, Agni and Prithvi missile. When we launched this missile, again a low-cost operation. The most important thing about Indian R&D is that our costs of operation are very low. We are able to produce what America or Britain or Germany or even Japan produces at a very cheap cost. We may not be able to produce cheap goods. We are able to produce cheap technology. We are able to produce cheap science. And when we produced it, when we launched the Agni and Prithvi, and our cost of operation was so low, and our accuracy was so good, and the power, it can be nuclear warheaded. You can put on the Agni missile, a nuclear bomb, and it will land exactly within 3 kilometer radius. 1500 kilometers later, you press a button, it can go 1500 kilometers farther, and it can land within 3 kilometers radius wherever you want. This kind of accuracy. And so the Americans began saying, no, this was actually something stolen from Germany. And our newspapers began publishing it. And he also says how our newspapers began publishing that the Pokhran blast was not a hydrogen bomb at all. He relates all this to say that the average Indian, the English educated Indian, he calls the modern Indian, the elite Indian, he has concluded that India cannot do anything. With all the potentialities, competence, achievement, technical knowledge, scientific achievements, academic brilliance, the Indian, the ruling Indian, the establishment Indian lacks confidence. And now, with this background, the rulers of India, whether they are politicians or bureaucrats or press people, or academics, or intellectuals. This is the ruling class. You don't think, when we say who is the ruler, you should not think only of the Prime Minister or the Defence Minister or the Finance Minister or the secretaries. You must think of the whole lot of setup, who mold the opinion of India, who are opinion making leaders, who, if they say, influences the society. You must keep the entire section in mind. It is this section that has lost faith in itself as well as in the country. Now I will relate to you in just the next 10 minutes what are our potentialities. Take for instance the land resources of India. America and China are 3 times the size of India. But the total land, cultivable land, plain land that China has is only 2/3 of the land that India has. India has nearly 160 to 165 million hectares of land. China has less than 120 million hectares of land, even though China is 3 times the size of India. Same thing take in the case of America. America is also a very vast country, 3 times larger than the size of India. But its land resources are only as much as India's resources. The second difference, India has sunlight throughout the year. Sunlight is so important. Bright sunshine is so important for cultivation, agriculture. And if you look at America or the European countries or Russia or China, China has only 6 months of sunshine. European countries have less than 5 months of sunshine. America has less than 6 months of sunshine. India has sunshine throughout the year. 11 months, 12 months in the south, sun never sets. And we can cultivate three seasons. We can have 3 crops. And it is estimated if the Ganga belt alone is cultivated properly. You know, our least productivity today is the Ganga belt, where the topsoil is the richest in the world. If you have 5 lakh years of cultivation, even then the topsoil will stand the cultivation. With that kind of resources, if you cultivate only the Ganga belt, we can feed the whole of Asia. Here is an agricultural expert, Devendra Sharma, who was here yesterday. He will testify to it. And we have never exploited it. We have exploited what was originally a desert like Punjab, and it is feeding the whole of the country. The Punjab farmers are able to feed the whole of India. It was not so 30 years back. If you look at the entire increase in agricultural production from 1950 to today, in the 50 years, it has happened in 30% of India's land. This is our potentiality in agriculture, the traditional talent of India. If you take, again I come to Punjab, because it is only by starting to travel in Punjab and then Gujarat and then Tamil Nadu and then parts of Uttar Pradesh, Andhra, Maharashtra, I came to know the potential of India's foundational economy. In Punjab, the traditional skills are so manifest that when all these refugees had come from Pakistan, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was the rehabilitation minister. At that time, whenever we wanted a solution, immediately after independence, we always thought of foreign help. So we got a team of experts from America to come and tell us what we should do to see that these refugees are properly rehabilitated. The American team wanted to see who are the refugees, and they met these skilled craftsmen. They are mostly from the Ramgadia community. So the team said, the expert team, you just give them seed capital, these people will come up. And you see the work this community has done. They are born engineers. They can make anything that they see. And see the small scale industrial development which has taken place here. The enterprising, hard working Punjab, see how it has come up. It is an example of Swadeshi. Own effort. And like that you can go across and see in a place, a desert called Rajkot. 30 years before there was nothing. 40 years before. And one Patel, a blacksmith, he happened to import a diesel engine And he found the mechanism was so simple, he can replicate it, produce it. And he began producing it. Today there are 2,500 small-scale industrial units in Rajkot. 50 assembling units. They were exporting in the year 1995 80 crores worth diesel engines to Saudi Arabia and the Middle Eastern countries. And the entire economy of Rajkot is built on it. It is an oasis in a desert. It is full of prosperity. And when I was speaking to the Small Scale Industrial Association's chairman, he could not understand one word of English. The only English word he knew was Rajkot. To produce prosperity, you don't need English knowledge. To understand technology, you don't need to be educated in colleges. In fact, the technology that is turned out in engineering college is only boardroom technology. It is in air-conditioned room. It is not worked in factories. It is not worked in fields. In Punjab Agriculture University, when they had invited me in Chandigarh, when I was speaking to the assembly of the academics as well as the students, when I asked them a question, how much agriculture the Indian farmer knows, everybody was silent. It was an audience of about 700, 800 people. A student from Andhra stood up and told me, sir, an Indian agriculturist knows as much agriculture and perhaps more agriculture about his own locality than what we know. When he said that, the whole audience did not dispute that. But will we ever accept an agriculturist as a technocrat? Will we ever accept a Ramgadia as a technocrat? Will we ever accept a Patel as a technocrat? We will not. So when the HRD index India is shown as 135, it is because the skilled people, competent people who know how to operate technology, how to cultivate, how to do things, when we are keeping them as illiterates. If you see the certificate that we issue, the passport that we issue for the carpenters, the masons, the skilled technocrats of India, in the passport it is written they are unskilled people. With the result, when they come back, when they go out of India, they are treated so badly in customs. You know what is the amount of foreign exchange these unskilled people bring to India? $12 billion a year. 50,000 crores is the foreign exchange that these unskilled people bring. The carpenters and masons of India. But for the amount of foreign exchange they brought from 1980 to 1999, India would have become insolvent. No Tata, no Birla, no government of India could have saved India. It is the ordinary people of India, with their skills, with their capacity, they have saved. But we have nothing to do with the skill of India. We don't develop it. We don't recognize it. We call them unskilled. When Japan developed, in 1990, the Japanese university was asked by the United Nations, Japanese Institute of Development Studies was asked by the United Nations universities to produce a report how Japan became an exporter of technology from being an importer of technology in a period of 30 years. The Japanese Institute of Development Studies produced 20 volumes of report, in which the first volume out of the 11 volumes translated into English mentions that Japan made use of the traditional talent of Japan to industrialize Japan. In fact, a Japanese scholar, when he explained this report to the Center for Policy Studies, he said, our method of education is not through the blackboard. If you ask a carpenter in India how to make a chair or a table, explain it on the blackboard, he says, I can't do it. You come and see how I do it. It is learning by doing. That is how technology was passed on in the East, in our countries. In the West, it is taught through blackboard. There is a world of difference between the two methods of learning. And we could never exploit the Indian method of learning. With the result, there is a breakdown in the technological inheritance of India. Look at the social capital of India. India saves, America spends. Why India saves? There is a family system. There is responsibility. There is restraint on a man. There are mothers. There are sisters who would keep the family together. Who would keep a restraint on their consumption. Who would save for the children, save for their future, save for the marriage of the daughters, education of the children. This has resulted in India being one of the highest savers in the world, 26%. That is why India does not throw their old people in asylums. They do not throw the care of the unemployed people to the government of India. This is a society which is a self-sustaining society, Swadeshi society. It manages its own problems. This doesn't happen in America. It is all thrown to the care of the government. This is called social capital in economics. The greatest economists say that it is difficult to produce such a society. You can finish such a society. You can disintegrate such a society. You cannot produce families. You cannot pass a law to create families. You cannot create a law to create communities. These are all existing. These are all evolving. You can only distort them. You can damage them. So the social capital of India is one of the greatest potentialities which has not been exploited. Come to the mineral resources. Any kind of mineral resources India has, whether it is steel, whether it is titanium, whether it is beryllium, some of the rarest kind of minerals we have. But unfortunately in the last 50 years we did not develop the technology. Many of the technologies are developed on the files of the government of India. Committees have been formed, technologies have been identified, technology has been identified, but the minister would not see it for 10 years. Abdul Kalam has quoted these instances. There are, in fact, one scientist, one Sharma, he came and cried before Abdul Kalam that 10 years before I had done this, my file is still not seen by the minister. Because we have produced a system in which we can't elect competent ministers. With the result, the talent of India is buried under the system, under the government, under illiterate ministers, illiterate MPs. Because we will elect only MPs based on caste. We will elect MPs only based on a particular narrow situation. We don't elect the best MPs, so we can't get the best ministers. So the talent of India is lying buried under them. So we have produced a political system which will not allow the talent of India to manifest. So these are the problems. We have potentialities, but the problems are more overpowering than the potentialities. And yesterday Devendra Sharma said, in plant varieties we have 45,000 plant varieties. We have animal varieties which are more than 20,000. If you see in America and the Western countries, they are denied of this variety. They have less than 250 varieties of plants and animals put together. And this is going to be the ruler of the world. How many varieties of plants that you control? That will decide what kind of medicines you can produce. What are the varieties of research you can carry? And what kind of, you can produce millions of patents. Here lies the potentiality for future. And as I already told you, we have a cost-effective technology. We need not have to spend as much as the Americans or the Western countries spend to produce technology. We can produce technology cheap. As I have shown, in the most technology-rich areas, whether it is satellite launching or whether it is turning out an atom bomb or take any intricate technology, India has produced them as the cheapest cost. Another important thing is that we destroyed the business and enterprise during this socialist period. Now there is recognition for business, traders and people who carry on economic operations. We were respecting only politicians. We were respecting only business people. Now we have started respecting also performers in business. This is a very important potentiality. We can go on and on. The time is limited. All that we have to understand now is the potentialities of India are vast and multiple, unexploited, unexplored. An institution like the Swadeshi Jagran Manch must look for talent and technology wherever it is available, resources wherever they are available. The water maintenance system of India will have to be revived. Everything we have, but we have in the last 150 years, 175 years, we have dismantled the whole resource base of India. We have to revitalize them, study them. It has to be based on locality by locality, because India is so vast. Every 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers, the situation changes. The agricultural methods change. The soil conditions change. The water maintenance system becomes different. So it is a vast project which the Swadeshi Jagran Manch has undertaken. We must study the resources, potentialities of India, community-wise, region-wise, place-wise, and we must build up a grand plan, scheme for the revitalization of India and make India the strongest nation in the world, unless a nation which has a great philosophic inheritance, peace in its heart and in the method in which the people function, there is inner peace in India. Unless such a society develops, peace cannot become a matter of